Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Geeky Waffle. I am Hope Molinax. My fellow waffles, Candace Arzumbury, has given me the keys to the castle because I am here with the executive producer and creator of Amphibia, Mr. Matt Braley.
Hey, how's it going? I'm
I'm
so
going.
happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here too. Thank you so much for giving us some time today. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. I love your guys' reviews. I read them every week. It means a lot to me that you have analyzed the show and really dug in. And yeah, thank you.
I don't want to know if any of my tinfoil hat theories are right, though, because I want to be surprised.
Then no comment.
Okay, well that's the end of this then. Thanks for joining us. Actually, I would love to open this by kind of taking a look back at the last several years of you as a creator. Coming up on June 15th is the 10th anniversary of Tourist Trapped, the first episode of Gravity Falls. And so, how does it feel to you looking back from your early days of Gravity Falls through Big City Greens, and now one of your first shows coming to an end?
I mean, I'm sort of feeling all the things all at once right now, all the emotions, you know what I mean? Like the full spectrum of them. And it's so funny because like you mentioning Tourist Trapped, like it does put things in perspective. I didn't know it was the 10-year anniversary, and now I feel very old. You know, when I got to Gravity Falls, I never really was interested in working in television. I always wanted to get into movies because like, they're so magical and lights, go off and everyone's in their seat. And so really that's my character arc, is that I love television now. And I think that it's a medium that can really do anything and tell any story. And the best part about television is that you can create many stories very quickly and they get to the screen relatively fast. So you can try lots of things. You can tell stories about lots of different characters in diverse situations, and you learn and you grow from each of those experiences. By contrast, when you're working on a movie, it's like 4 years for one story, baby. You know what I mean? Like, and you hope to God that script is good. But in my time, in my 10 years, my goodness, I've worked on dozens and dozens and dozens of scripts with dozens of characters in so many situations. And I really feel like, you know what I mean? I've learned and I've grown so much since then. But I'll never forget working on Gravity Falls. And I also loved working on Steven Universe and Big City Greens. All these shows have meant so much to me. And those creators, true legends, wonderful to work with.
I know you've also more recently worked on the Annie award-winning movie, The Mitchells versus the Machines.
Yeah, my experience with Mitchells was a little bit like off the record. Full disclosure, I did storyboard work for the kind of pitch materials that was used to sell the movie. So it was very early on, but I was so happy to do it because even from the very beginning, the vision for Mitchells was very specific and clear and hilarious. I remember I did a short scene of the two robots, like the goofy ass robots coming into the Quickie Mart.
Deberbot.
Yeah. And like, I remember boarding them, drawing those goofy faces on themselves. And like, I have to say that like the spirit of that movie, again, consistently across like its, X plus years of development. And that's such a testament to Mike Rianda and his vision. And, I've worked with him too on Gravity Falls, and he was just so great to work with. So yeah, that was great. I'm glad I got to do that.
Oh, it was one of my favorite movies of last year, and I probably watched.
Good, man. So good.
Well, to bring us back to Gravity Falls, I'm doing great. To bring us back to Amphibia, you talked about making these dozens and dozens of scripts for these characters, but after so many episodes, what is your favorite episode of the series and why?
That's difficult for me to pick favorites because like I have touched so many stories and I love them all.
Well, what are some of your favorite kids?
Yeah, I can give you highlights. Toe Tax from season 1 will always mean so much to me because it's the first episode where you can see Anne arcing. And that moment where she puts her foot down and she says enough is enough to those tax collectors and stands up for these frogs who quite honestly were a little bit like mean to her in the episode. it really touches me every time I watch it. And you know, I also really love all our tentpole episodes. Reunion, where again, that line where Sprig he shoots the mud at Sasha and he says, well, his line means so much to me. He says, like, for Anne's best friend, you sure don't know her very well. She's brave and she's kind and she's not gonna get pushed around by someone like you. Like, that stuff makes me tear up just just thinking about it, because like those moments are really, you know, what the show is all about. And so like, I guess I'll just throw some others. Like, I love Marcy at the Gates. I love True Colors. I love Battle of the Bands. I love The New Normal. I love Anne's Terminator, because when Anne and her mom have that fight, it's just literally like my mom. You know what I mean? Like, I love that episode. I love Escape to Amphibia for the same reason. When mom brushes her tear away and says, like, you're not my little girl anymore, that just like makes me weep. You know what I mean? Like, and I love our kind of finale. I love All In and Hardest Thing, and I think people are going to really enjoy them.
Not ready for those.
I know, right?
I hope you know I have a whole like sentence on here that just says, I wanted to tell you I love your mom.
It's so funny because I'm so trained from the 90s from like your mom jokes. Like, I'm so like, it's so baked into my being. And like, so when
we're from the
says,
same
like,
generation, so I understand that.
Yeah. But I really appreciate that, and I will tell her that, and that will mean so much to her.
I can't believe that she is a first-time voice actor. Like, she has given some of the most emotional moments of season 3.
Yeah, and it was a balance for me, because like I want to be a good son as well as like a good EP. And one of the things was like, I will not like bring my mom to too like tumultuous of an emotional place in the booth, just because like I couldn't bring myself to, because I'm like her son, and like, you know what I mean? Like, I never wanted to strain our relationship, because it was something I was a little worried about, because it's like, oh, is this going to be weird? Because it's like, but she was such a professional, and like, I just loved working with her. And she really, you know, my mom is such a specific personality, and that's why like I cast my mom, is because she's very strict, but also very warm in her own way. But she doesn't emote wildly either. And that's like been my experience growing up with her. It was so funny because when we were walking to the booth at our very first record, and she's got the script and she's studying it and she's walking next to me, she turns to me and she says, so am I a strict mom or a kind mom? And I just turned to her and I was like, oh, Mom, you're both. And then I realized she was asking about the character. You know what I mean? Like, I thought she was like, I was like, wow, we're having this really amazing, soulful moment. I was like, yes, the character, of course.
I think that's actually one of my favorite parts of season 3, actually, is watching Anne's parents answer that call to adventure. And it's just, I love those kind of stories in YA fiction, especially in animation, just like the importance of adult figures and parents in these kinds of stories.
Yes. So I love when, again, in Escape to Amphibia, when mom and dad are like, you can do this. You know what I mean? Like, we believe in you. And that's because we've seen that you're a different person now, and you've come back from Amphibia, you know, and you're responsible and you're driven, and we have faith in you. And I think that like I've seen a lot of YA where the parents are they're always just kind of like either sticks in the mud, or they're there to kind of be a force of opposition.
Or they're dumb, because I used to be a nanny. I used to be a nanny, and those shows always made me so mad.
Yes, exactly. So like I wanted something different from the parents. I wanted them to be part of this grand adventure in their own way. And not to spoil anything, they have a very gratifying part to play in our super long episode. So I look forward to it.
Though I this is kind of just like a me thing. I have to know, was the Earth arc, did it get any inspiration from season 1 of Digimon?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Oh man, and that's like one of the best parts of Digimon. Like that's where they go back. Oh, it's so good.
Like Matt and TK's parents like standing together holding hands. Oh,
it's so good. I really feel like that first Digimon arc, and that ends with like Myotismon like showing up in the city,
Yeah,
right?
and
like,
then Wizardmon dies, and I cry still as a
it's so
34-year-old
good.
woman.
I will say I couldn't. I had like kind of flashbacks to Digimon, and I was like, okay, wait, my memory's a little hazy, but wasn't the prophecy for like their Digimon to shoot them? Do you remember? It was like,
Yep.
yeah. I
Yep, it
remember
was.
being like, you just have to trust me, like
Ugh.
where Garurumon and Agumon like shoot us, and I was like, whoa, this is a crazy turn.
I am 10 years old and confused but intrigued.
Yeah, I was like sort of into it though. Yeah, I was like, hey, you got to do what you got to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
you gotta
yeah, no,
save the world.
I love that. But also, Sonic X.
Oh yeah.
There's mostly the first episode of Sonic X where they wake up,
Oh.
or Sonic wakes up, and it's actually this really amazingly directed sequence where he's like surrounded by darkness, and the first thing he hears is this ambient kind of like car, but he doesn't know what it is. And then these lights come toward him, and he gets out of the way, and he's like, "Whoa, what was that?" And then like slowly but surely, we reveal that he's like on a freeway, like in our world. And I was just always so like touched or inspired by that kind of like progression and how the information was doled out. So yeah, but I mean, there's lots of kids anime that kind of went into a similar direction there. But like, yeah, Digimon and Sonic X, 100%.
I'm totally here for that. If somebody will let me, I will one day make a Sonic the Hedgehog podcast. If somebody I have no one to talk Sonic with, and it's sad.
Hours. You could talk for just hours.
Ugh. We don't have time to get into all my feelings about Kin Penders today. The last thing I want to know about the Boon Choi is, and I don't know if it's a spoiler, so if it is, that's totally cool. What are their first names?
Oh yeah. Okay. So their first names, it's really tricky because actually in Thai we have nicknames, and we have
okay.
yeah, and we have full names. So like they actually both each have two names. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So the dad's nickname is B.
BEA?
BEA is good. I would say BEE.
BE.
Like literally a bumblebee, because like actually in Thai we co-opt English words sometimes for nicknames. Like one of my cousins, her name is Fern. You know what I mean? Like P Fern, and that's like sort of like, yeah. So there's a lot of variety. Oh, I also, one of my cousins, her name is Apun, which is like the Thai word for apple, and it's super cute. But like, yeah, we have all kinds of like nicknames and stuff. Actually, I have a nickname too, which is New, which is literally the English word new, N-E-W, and that's because when I was a little baby, my nickname used to be Tot, like which was 10, and then I got super sick. And in Thai, like if a baby gets sick, you're like, we got to change the nickname, because this you know what I mean, we need like a fresh start. Yeah, so like in order to kind of like deal with the idea that I got sick, we renamed me New, and that's because it was like new, like a new start. Like it's literally new in English. So like, yeah, sometimes people call me New, like Nong New, which is like, Nong is also how you say like younger kid, like someone who's younger than you. So I always get called Nong New in Thailand. And then the mom's name is and that's like O-U-M. And so I think that's good. Just know their nicknames, B and And is my one of my aunts. Her name is her nickname is Ba. And that's, you know, I also Savisa, which is Anne's middle name, is one of my cousins too. So I'm just pulling these names from yeah. These are just family members. And so B is the dad, and is the mom. And so there you go. That's your inside knowledge.
No, but this is actually like something that I really wanted to talk to you about, because looking back on just like us growing up in our generation, I know for me, like as a queer woman, my queer representation was Sailor Uranus and Neptune being cousins.
So awesome.
So great. And finding out that like Toya and Yukito's relationship was just nuked out of Card Captors, you know. And so, like, I look at your show, not just your show, like Amphibia and my mind just blanked. Owl House and Steven Universe and She-Ra, and like this like new wave of just these amazing animated shows, giving this next generation of kids this such diverse representation, not just for queer
Yep.
people, but also for BIPOC people as well.
Yep.
How does that feel to have that kind of responsibility both in front and behind the camera?
So, diversity in all its forms is something that our generation really wants and like cares about, and it's important to us. And so like anytime you see one of these pictures come out or one of these shows come out, there's a good chance that like if it's our generation that's calling the shots, it's a priority. And whether it comes from the crew or whether it comes from the showrunner, like you can bet your bottom dollar it's going to be packed with diversity because it's a priority. And I think it only happens when it's a priority. It probably is not going to happen if the person in charge is like, I feel kind of so about this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We could or we couldn't. I'm like, no. You got to be like really into this. It needs to be important to you. So I think it's really important, and it is something that like, it's a responsibility. And I think that like it's always surprising to me when stuff comes out now and it doesn't. You know what I mean? Because it stands out in a bad way to me when like something comes out and it's surprisingly like doesn't have any of that.
Oh, I know. Star Wars is my first fandom.
Yeah. Well, because it's like, exactly. Yeah. It's like, what's the big deal here? Like, what do you guys like? And I think that's good that we're at a place culturally, and like hats off to amazing shows like Steven and the Owl House that are really pioneering this stuff. Craig of the Creek, you know what I mean? They're doing a lot of it too, where it's just like, it was important to people. It's showing up in more and more shows. And it's good that when stuff comes out and doesn't have like diversity, it like makes you raise an eyebrow. Like, well, it's not difficult to do. It shouldn't be difficult to do. And it should be a priority. So I guess that's my thought on that there is like, you just want to make sure that you're doing it. And that you're kind of like doing it well and right and, often and early.
So to kind of, one of my favorite episodes recently was The Corn the King. And I don't know if this is spoilers, but if it's cool, we'll move on. What was a normal day like for Andreas, Leaf, and Beryl before everything fell apart?
That is a great question. I feel like these three, you know what I mean? I'm in love with this kind of vision of a prince, a guard, and a gardener. You know what I mean? Like all three of them, they live in this palace, but they have different jobs. So Beryl's a guard, Leaf is the gardener, but she's specifically the gardener for the Mossmen. You know what I mean? So she's a gardener and a warden, sort of. She's taking care of them, but they're all chained up down there. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and she's learning about them and really loves them. And you'll notice too, and this is so interesting to me because many fans have kind of like glommed onto this. They were like, oh, I was surprised that Leaf didn't have any moral objections to like the conquering and the invading, but it was really important for us to make it feel realistic that they're all part of this imperialist society.
Yeah, when you're raised in that society, you don't think to any differently.
I feel like that's sort of like, and you'll see stories like that sometimes where it feels a little bit like someone from 2022 dropped into 1850. You know what I mean? Like, because they have that strong, like, and I totally get it. Cause like we have a lot of period stuff that we are even still producing today. And you want to make sure that like these characters are relatable and likable. But like, yeah, for me, it felt weird to think that this person who has participated and benefited from this like way of life would be suddenly like, I think this is wrong. You know what I mean? Because it just, so what I love about Leaf is that she comes to it, obviously by having that vision and realizing like, oh, what we're doing needs to stop. And she's really doing it for a love of her friends and of her own world that is like motivating her, but sorry, I got a little off track. I think,
no, you're fine. You're fine.
I think what's really important about the three of them is they live in this ecosystem of the palace. You know what I mean? So I figure that Beryl is mostly on guard duty and doing guard stuff. and that Leaf is mostly doing gardening and Mossman stuff, and that Andreas is doing all his princely duties and Dad is training him, preparing him. And the three of them, they kind of sneak off and do mischief together. You know what I mean? Like they steal helmets and they switch portraits. I actually think a great example of how the three of them would behave together is in the sleepover episode.
I was thinking that in the back of my mind. I was like, do they have their own sleepover to end all sleepovers?
When the kids go ham in the palace and Lady Olivia's like, oh my God, I'm just trying to keep this chaos under control. And you get a little bit of it when Leaf steals the box and she's playing keep away with Beryl and Andreas. You want to feel like, oh, they're a little bit fun and mischievous. And doesn't even Beryl, he says hey, you want to go running around screaming at the top of your lungs? Yeah. So I think it's important that even though they exist in this palace ecosystem, the three of them are teens.
Yeah. So kind of on a final note, I know you can't talk spoilers, but what emotion do you hope that the audience takes away from the finale?
So I have kind of two parts to that question, which is, this show has always been about something very specific, which is the ebb and flow of friendship. You know what I mean? So you start together and you grow apart and you learn and you grow independently and you find each other again. And now you're all a little bit different. And what does that mean for the friendship moving forward? I think that the show has always been about that. You have these three girls who are very tight, and then they get dropped into this medieval Lord of the Ringsy fantasy rigmarole, but they're separated, right? And so they have their individual adventures, and then they come back together, and they're all a little bit different. So that theme is throughout the show, and it's in the conclusion of this story, which is really the ebb and flow and the changes of friendship. You know what I mean? It's the changing nature of friendship, really. So that's the first thing to look out for. The second thing to look out for is specifically with Anne. Anne has two character arcs, actually, and I'll describe them right now. There's a broad top-level character arc, which is about an irresponsible kid finding the best version of herself and, getting some responsibility and taking care of these people around her and learning to do the right thing and finding her heart. That's the first story arc, which is a little bit obvious. You know what I mean? That's surface level. Here's the second one. The second character arc for Anne is really about self-love and self-respect, because you have this character who gets pushed around, people walking all over her in the first season. She bends to Sasha's will. And that can only happen to me with someone who doesn't have the self-respect to stand up and do the right thing. And so in these final episodes, you will see that second arc kind of come to fruition. And that's a really important one for me, because this story, it is Anne's story, and it's more than just about be responsible, do the right thing. But there is something we are trying to say about self-love here as well.
I actually really felt that a lot in the last episode that I saw, which was Fight or Flight, which was Anne just being like, I don't care if anybody agrees with me. I'm doing this because I finally have confidence in myself to go after Domino too, and nobody likes me. That's fine. I'll do it myself. And she hasn't really had that all season. And I really liked seeing her have that kind of down dip as a character, but also starting to come back into her own with these support pieces in place.
Yes. And that confidence comes from this idea of I know who I want to be finally, and I'm ready to execute on that desire. You know what I mean? It's really just this is a character who, and actually at the start of season 3, you get this, which she's going to take charge now. And she's really she's not waiting anymore for people to tell her what she should do. Where even in season 2, it's a little bit nuanced, but the second Marcy comes on the scene, Anne's great. You point us in the direction and we will execute, and I'll look to you for guidance. And it's a subtle thing, but yeah, she's actually once again in a way falling in line. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. She is looking to someone else to make these really important decisions. And I think at the end of True Colors, it's just her. It is just her now.
Well, Matt, I know that we're out of time. I am so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for reading the reviews. I really appreciate that. And I am so excited and crushed to see how
No,
Amphibia
it's
ends.
good. It's good. It's good.
I know, but it was my
natural.
comfort show. It was my
Yeah.
comfort show, Matt. What am I
Well,
gonna watch?
nah, there's so much great content out there, and
There
I think
really is.
for a story like Amphibia craves to end in a way. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It desires to kind of resolve, and I've always felt kind of a moral obligation to like let these girls like have a rest. You know what I mean? They've been through so
Yeah.
much.
We don't appreciate things fully until they're gone. So
Yeah, and some of yeah, exactly. Great point. And some of my favorite stories are because of the ending. So I
mhm.
hope you guys enjoy it.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today here on the Geeky Waffle. So
Yeah, my pleasure. Take care.
you too.